Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into the sloshing, soapy, sometimes suspect world of medieval bathing. You're about to wake up as a regular person in the Middle Ages, sleeping in straw, sweating in wool, and carrying the delicate aroma of wood smoke, onions, and someone else's boots. Bathing isn't forbidden here. It's just complicated. There's water. Sometimes. There's soap. Sort of. And there's a whole lot of, well, it's better than nothing. You probably won't survive the first rinse. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop your location and the local time in the comments. I love seeing where and when you're watching from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up itchy, not stretch and yawn itchy. Scratch your ear with your knee itchy. Something bit you during the night. Possibly a flea. Possibly your brother. It's hard to say. Your bed isn't really a bed. It's a sack of straw tucked into the corner of a timber-framed room with one window, no glass, and approximately 1 million smells. The straw pokes through the linen sheet and sticks to your neck like judgment. You scratch under your tunic, dislodge something, and try not to think about it too hard. You sit up and inhale the heady perfume of the Middle Ages. Old sweat, smoke, damp cloth, cabbage. Everything smells warm in a bad way. You reach for your water jug left by the hearth. It's lukewarm and a little slimy. You splash some on your face, pat your armpits with a cloth that also once cleaned the floor, and breathe deeply like that counts as purification. It doesn't. But it's all you've got. You live in a peasant village, which means your home is made of wood, wattle, and daub, also known as sticks, mud, and panic. There's no bathroom, no plumbing, just a chamber pot and the strong hope that no one knocks it over before you empty it into the communal trench. Historians still argue whether medieval folks truly bathed once a year, or whether that's just slander from smug Renaissance poets. Truth is, people wanted to be clean. They just had to work around firewood, weather, superstition, and the overwhelming presence of livestock in their personal lives. You pull on your tunic, coarse wool over a linen shift, and scratch at your hairline. You know you're not clean, but you're cleaner than most people on your street. That counts for something. The fire's still warm from last night. Your mother's stirring a pot that smells like onion and defeat. She hands you a crust of bread. You eat it while trying not to touch your face again. Too late. Your hands were on the dog earlier. Quirky fact. Some peasants added ashes to water for a quick lye rinse. Others rubbed their skin with dry sand, not unlike exfoliating with despair. You think about going to the stream today. Not for a swim. Swimming is a leisure activity reserved for people who own 2 shirts. But maybe a quick rinse if the weather holds and the geese aren't angry. The village priest once told you that frequent bathing opens the pores to unholy vapors. But then again, he hasn't changed robes since last Lent. Your sister stumbles out of the other room, hair tangled, tunic backwards. She scratches her arm and mutters something about a mouse. You hand her the water cloth. She blinks at it like it's a relic. Outside, a rooster screams. A pig grunts at the door. Someone down the lane is yelling about stolen turnips. The sun is just beginning to rise, casting everything in that soft golden light that makes even your bucket look romantic for a moment. You step outside and take a deep breath. Mist clings to the thatch roofs. The world smells briefly fresh, like grass and bread, before the smoke kicks in. You rub your armpits with crushed sage you've kept in a pouch. It sort of helps. Mostly, it just smells like herbed stew now. You smile anyway. It's your little trick, your secret ritual, because you may not be bathed, but you're trying. And that's as close to clean as it gets. You begin your day the way most people in the Middle Ages do, by trying not to touch your own face. It's not that you're filthy exactly, just textured. You rub your hands together, and they leave behind a faint trail of grain dust, sweat, and a mysterious stickiness that probably came from the dog. You wipe them on your tunic, then remember that your tunic is part of the problem. Today, it's wash-up day. Not take a bath. Don't get ahead of yourself. This is more like tactical cleansing. You head to the bucket near the hearth. The water in it is from yesterday, warmed slightly by the embers and flavored with a floating leaf, and at least 2 surprises. You dunk a rag in it, squeeze it out, and begin scrubbing your face. It stings. You forgot someone put vinegar in it last time. For freshness, you're now marinating. You wipe under your arms, behind your ears, around your neck. That's the big 3. Bonus points for elbows or feet, but honestly, no one's grading you. You consider removing your tunic for a full scrub down. Then remember, your neighbor's window has a direct view of your door. You settle for a vigorous wrist and calf rub and pretend you're refreshed. This, by the way, counts as bathing. Historians still argue whether the term bathing in medieval records referred to full immersion, or just this kind of wipe-and-go routine. You argue that if you can smell yourself less afterwards, it qualifies. You grab your comb. It's made of horn and has exactly 3 unbroken teeth. You run it through your hair carefully, dislodging a flake, a tangle, and, yep, something that moves. You flick it into the fire and whisper a quiet apology to whatever deity oversees hair hygiene. Then there's the matter of your linen shift. Your outer clothes rarely get washed. Wool doesn't play well with soap and fire. But the linen underlayer, that gets rinsed whenever possible. You lean down, sniff under your collar, and make a face. Not urgent, not great either. You'll keep it on rotation. You rub a bit of rosemary on your chest, more out of hope than habit. You saw a woman do it once before market, and she seemed confident. You like confidence. You mimic her hand motion. You smell like chicken stuffing. Good enough. Outside, your brother is pouring water over his head, straight from the rain barrel. He's 12, shirtless, and howling like it's January. It's not. But the barrel water is always cold, no matter the season. You nod approvingly. He's braver than you, or just less intelligent. Same result. Your grandmother sees him and mutters, "That'll let the spirits in." She believes bathing too often opens the soul to wine demons. She also believes the cat is your grandfather reincarnated. You don't argue, especially not with the cat. Quirky fact, some medieval folks believed that if you cleaned too thoroughly, your body's natural oils, your humoral balance, would be disrupted, inviting illness. So people stuck to the basics, visible parts, essential creases, and prayers. You use your sleeve to wipe your forehead. You rub your teeth with a clean stick. You chew some parsley and pretend it's mint. You feel passable. You do your morning chores in this freshened state. Sweep the dirt floor, again, chase the chicken out of the grain sack, again, and haul firewood inside. You work up a good sweat. The effort undoes everything. You pause halfway through splitting a log and think, why bother? But then you catch a glimpse of your reflection in the basin water, muddy, warped, but definitely cleaner than yesterday, and decide it was worth it. Just barely. You refill the basin from the rain barrel. A single frog watches you the whole time. You nod at it. It does not nod back. You think about bathing the real way, fully, deeply, gloriously. But that requires time, wood for the fire, soap, and permission. You'll have to wait for a Saturday or a holy day. Today is neither. Today is make-do day. You chew on the end of a clean cloth to freshen your breath, tie your hair back, and step outside. You're not sparkling. You're not fragrant. But you're less sticky. And in the Middle Ages, that's practically a miracle. You're out the door now, dressed and washed by the generous standards of your century. Your linen shift scratches under your tunic. Your face feels tingly from the vinegar rag, and your breath smells like you're halfway between a herb garden and a cheese cellar. But in your heart, you know you've made an effort. And yet, there's a problem. It's the armpits. No amount of wiping really fixes them. You dabbed with rosemary. You rubbed sage under there once. You even tried stuffing crushed juniper berries into your sleeve last winter, which went well until the dye bled and your underarms turned purple. Now you stick with safer options, like chalk. You grab a little pinch from the fire hearth, pat into each underarm, and pray to Saint Freshness. It's not glamorous, but it soaks up the worst of it. Sort of. You'll reapply by mid-afternoon if the day gets sweaty. This is how people stay clean here, not by being spotless, but by keeping the stink at arm's length. Literally. You wrap a clean strip of linen around your neck to protect your tunic, and also because your mother insists it absorbs bad humors. You suspect it's more about sweat. Either way, it makes you feel fancy. You add one final touch. A tiny sprig of lavender from the beam above the hearth. You tuck it into your collar. You're now officially perfumed. Quirky fact. Medieval folks believed certain herbs could mask not just body odor, but illness itself. They stuffed their sleeves with mint, their pockets with thyme, and sometimes tucked entire pomanders under their belts. You once saw a nobleman pass out at the market because his pomander was filled with actual burning resin. You walk down the road, passing others doing the same thing, brushing dust off tunics, tucking in stray linen layers, discreetly adjusting a sandal strap, or wiping their nose on a sleeve they pretend is for that purpose. Everyone's pretending. And part of that is how people dress. You see, they didn't wash their clothes as often as you'd think, especially wool, too valuable, too shrinkable. So they layered. The linen underneath got the worst of it, and the outer layers stayed relatively unsoiled, in theory. You once wore the same tunic for 12 days straight during harvest. By the end, you could stand it in a corner and it wouldn't fall over. Your neighbor, Greta, is hanging her shift on the line. It's so white, it almost glows. She must have boiled it. Probably added wood ash. You envy her. Then you remember she slipped into the Lord's kitchen last week to help herself to their lye soap. Brave woman. Your own soap is homemade. Animal fat, lye, and old herbs. You don't like to look at it directly. It stings your hands and smells like boiled shoe. But it does get stains out. When you reach the market square, you notice the baker's apprentice has tied a ribbon around his head. Fashion? Maybe. But you know the real reason. To keep his hair out of the dough, and also to hide the fact that he hasn't washed his scalp in 3 weeks. You nod at him. He nods back. Mutual understanding. You spend the morning helping unload sacks of barley. Dust swirls. Your arms ache. The chalk you applied earlier begins to give up. You scratch under your sleeve, inhale, and wish you hadn't. Around noon, you sneak away behind the stable, grab your cloth, and redab your pits. You whisper a quick prayer. You chew a parsley stem for courage. You rinse your hands in a bucket of water that's only slightly gray. This is what hygiene is now: vigilance, improvisation, and a dash of delusion. You return to the stall, smiling faintly. You feel sort of fresh. Historians still argue whether medieval people truly accepted dirtiness or simply did their best with what they had. You'd say it's like living with a very clingy, invisible dog that constantly rolls in manure. You can't get rid of it. You just try to stay one step ahead. By evening, you've sweat through your shift. Again. You'll dry it over the fire later. Maybe sprinkle it with rose petals. Maybe just turn it inside out. That's a secret technique passed down from the elders. You sit beside your mother, peeling roots, your collar drooping, your sleeves dusty. She sniffs you once, nods, and hands you another turnip. That's approval. You've bathed in your own way. And you'll do it again next week, or if there's a wedding, or if something smells worse than you. You've made it halfway through the week without actually climbing into a tub or basin, and honestly, that's a win. But today is special. Not feast day special. Not wedding special. No, today's the kind of special where your mother squints at you and says, "You smell like feet and cheese had a fight," which means it's time for a real bath, which means the river. Bathing in the Middle Ages isn't something done lightly. You don't just wander into water for fun. There are rules. There are risks. There are eels. But you grab your linen rag, your hardest soap, and your dignity, what's left of it, and you set out. It's a short walk through the fields. The grass is high, the ground a bit muddy, and every cow you pass watches you like it knows your secrets. The river lies just beyond the copse of trees, slow-moving, slightly green, and filled with a combination of reeds, frogs, and local superstition. You take a deep breath and step to the edge. There's no changing room, no privacy screen, just a strategically placed bush and the hope no one's out looking for mushrooms today. You strip down to your shift, already stained from last week's stew incident, and wade into the shallows. Cold doesn't begin to describe it. The water grabs your ankles like a vengeful ghost. You hiss through your teeth. A duck nearby startles and flaps off, unimpressed. You plunge in up to your knees, then thighs, then all the way. Your breath leaves your body. Your regrets immediately surface. You scrub quickly, face first, then arms, then the parts you don't talk about at dinner. The soap barely lathers. It just sits there, a gray lump of fat and ash, daring you to feel cleaner. You rub harder. Your skin reddens. The water turns a faint shade of beige. Quirky fact, peasants often bathed in groups, not because they were especially sociable, but because rivers were risky. Dangerous currents, snapping fish, and more than one person who didn't accidentally forget where the slippery rocks were. You hear a rustle. You freeze. You scan the bank. No one, just a goat, watching. You keep scrubbing. Your hair, stiff from days of wind, dust, and herbal confusion, resists your fingers. You dunk it once, twice, and try to work soap through the tangles. It mostly succeeds in making your eyes sting and your neck ache. A frog leaps onto your foot. You pretend it's a divine blessing. When you're done, you stand in the current a moment longer, letting it pull at the dirt behind your knees and the guilt behind your ears. Then, slowly, you wade out, dripping, chattering, fresh. You shake off like a soaked dog. You wring out your shift. You throw your arms to the sun and whisper a prayer to no god in particular. just to whoever is responsible for warm breezes and dry undergarments. The goat wanders off, possibly disappointed. You sit on a flat rock and let yourself air dry. You pluck grass seeds from your hair. You notice your feet are cleaner than they've been in months. You try not to think about how long that will last. Historians still argue whether bathing in rivers was a regular occurrence or a desperate seasonal ritual. Judging by your blue fingernails and stinging eyes, you're thinking desperate. Back at the village, your family notices. "You bathed?" your sister says, poking your arm. "On purpose?" You smile smug. "Yes." Your mother hands you a bowl of soup. Try not to spill it on yourself this time. You try. You fail. Your tunic catches a splash. But under the soup stain, under the dust on your sandals, beneath the tangled hair and lingering sting of vinegar soap, you're clean, not just wiped or perfumed or blessed by proximity to someone else's bath, but really, truly clean. You fall asleep that night with damp curls on your pillow, the scent of river reeds on your skin, and a frog somewhere in the thatch above your head. You don't even mind. Not tonight. You've survived the river bath. Your skin is pink, your hair smells like soapweed, and your mother's no longer flinching when you sit too close at dinner. By medieval standards, you're practically radiant. But now you've discovered a cruel truth. Soap hurts. Not just your pride, your actual skin. The fat and ash mixture you scrubbed yourself with, crafted lovingly by your aunt in a blackened cauldron that once doubled as a dye vat, has left your forearms dry and a little red. You touch the back of your hand and it flakes like old parchment. Your sister calls it wizard skin. You glare. She's not wrong. So you try a remedy, smearing goose fat on your arms. It's soothing for about 2 minutes. Then you smell like roasted poultry. A dog follows you home. You learn that in the Middle Ages, soap was a whole situation. Soap for the rich came in cubes, hard, smooth, and sometimes scented with exotic ingredients like rosemary oil or rose water. It was imported, expensive, and usually not wasted on scrubbing your backside. More often, it was used for linen or gifted to someone you didn't like enough to keep the good figs for. You, of course, use the homemade stuff. Lye soap. It's made by boiling animal fat with ashes until it thickens into something between wax and regret. You watch your aunt stir it once, muttering to herself, face slick with steam and authority. The final product is stored in cracked clay molds and carved out in chunks. Each chunk has its own shape. Each chunk judges you. Today, you're assigned laundry duty. You fill a basin with water drawn from the well, cold, metallic, and maybe a little frog-flavored. You drop in your shift and tunic, sprinkle soap shavings over the top, and begin the process. Scrubbing in medieval times involves wooden paddles, elbow grease, and a lot of muttering. You rub the cloth against a ridged board made from riverwood. It squeaks. You wince. You imagine your tunic crying for help. The soap doesn't foam. It never does. Foam is for fairy tales. What it does is bite. The lye works into your cuts. Your knuckles protest. Your wrists redden. You splash more water on the cloth than yourself. Everything feels a little raw, a little flammable. You glance over at the neighbor's laundry. She's hung her family's shirts in neat rows, white, clean, and fluttering like holy banners. You hate her just a little. Then you remember she once dropped a chamber pot on her foot, and you forgive her. Quirky fact, medieval soap makers were sometimes viewed with suspicion. Their stinking cauldrons and lye barrels drew rats and caused fires, but people still bought from them, especially before feast days. Smelling nice in church was, for some, a form of penance. You hang your garments up to dry. They drip into the mud. A chicken walks under them and leaves a gift. You sigh and pretend you didn't see it. By midday, your fingers are wrinkled and sore. Your forearms look like they lost a duel with a sandpaper monk. You rinse one last cloth, your best linen, and hang it in the sun. It shines faintly. You feel victorious. Then you trip over a bucket and land face first in the rinse water. You lie there, soaked and blinking. The dog that followed you from earlier comes over and licks your ear. "Thanks," you mutter. You wring yourself out, pluck grass from your hair, and sit by the fire to dry. Your sister walks by, sniffing. She frowns. You smell like burnt meat and sadness. You grin. "Soap?" She blinks. "Oh, that's what that is." You wrap your arms in dry cloth and sip a cup of ale. Your skin is cleaner. Your clothes are whiter. Your pride is slightly bruised. But you've survived another round of medieval hygiene. Historians still argue whether peasants used soap regularly or just during holy weeks. You'd argue that it's used when absolutely necessary, and only if someone else starts making faces. That evening, your mother nods approvingly when she sees the wash line. You bask in her rare praise. Your father pats your shoulder, then pulls his hand back and mutters, "Ow." You smile wider. You sleep with the faint scent of ashes and goat fat wrapped around you like a halo. And somehow, it's comforting. You wake to a surprise. Your cousin has arrived from the next village over, and with her comes a rumor, a hot one, steaming like a cauldron of onion stew. The bathhouse is open. This is big. Not everyone has access to a bathhouse. Some towns don't even have one, but yours does. A small timber structure with crooked beams, smoky glass windows, and a faint smell of damp socks and herbs. It's not fancy, but it's warm. And more importantly, private-ish. You grab your linen wrap, a comb, and the stub of your good soap. You haven't used it since Easter. It still smells vaguely like rosemary and wishful thinking. You tie your shift tighter and head off through the muddy lane, heart pounding like you're off to meet royalty. When you arrive, the bathhouse is already busy. It's a gendered rotation day. Women in the morning, men in the evening, and someone always grumbling about fairness. You nod politely at the clerk, hand over a token you were saving for a new spoon, and enter. Steam hits you in the face like a wet blanket full of ambition. You blink. Inside, the room is a blur of mist, limbs, and murmurs. Wooden benches run along the walls, and in the center, the bath. It's a giant wooden tub, hot from the fire underneath, constantly fed with ladles of water and puffs of gossip. You strip quickly, joining the others. Nobody looks directly at anyone else. It's the unspoken rule of communal bathing. Eye contact is for confessionals and duels. You dip a toe in, then a knee, then the rest of you. The water is hot. Blessedly so. You hiss, wince, and then sink in with a sigh that sounds like 50 years of tension leaving your shoulders. You're not alone. Beside you, a midwife hums as she scrubs her arms. Across the tub, a merchant's wife is soaking her feet and muttering about her lazy sons. A girl no older than 10 is using a rag to polish her knees like she expects a blessing. The bathhouse isn't just for bathing. It's a hub, a haven, a social center with built-in steam. You eavesdrop shamelessly. One woman swears she saw the Lord's daughter bathing with 2 sprigs of lavender, not one. Another says her cousin found a Roman coin in the bathhouse drain and now wears it as a talisman. Someone asks if it's true that the miller's apprentice hasn't bathed since Pentecost. Everyone agrees it probably is. You take your soap, lather it against a rag, and begin scrubbing. This time, it foams, actual bubbles. You stare at them like they're alchemy. You scrub your arms, your legs, your feet, twice, your shoulders, even behind your ears. The water grows cloudy with proof of your effort. Then, someone offers you a brush. You accept. It's bristly, aggressive. It doesn't so much clean as reveal skin that had long since gone undercover. You hiss, then laugh. Others join in. Quirky fact: some medieval bathhouses offered snacks, bread, fruit, even weak wine. A woman near the tub hands you a piece of apple. You eat it with pruny fingers and feel like you've ascended to the upper class. Historians still debate whether bathhouses were places of purity or pleasure. The truth? They were both. You hear laughter, you hear whispered stories, you see hands held underwater just a little too long. People came for the heat, stayed for the human connection. You lean back. Let the steam rise around you. Close your eyes. For a few short moments, you're not a peasant. You're a human being with clean skin, warm water, and a quiet place to exist. You sigh deeply. Then someone farts. It's small, it's polite, it bubbles. There's a pause. And then everyone laughs. Even the merchant's wife. You step out eventually, skin glowing, limbs loose. You dry yourself with a scratchy cloth, dress slowly, and rebraid your hair with fresh herbs. You smell like a salad. In the best way. You hand the clerk your empty token pouch and step outside. The wind hits your damp face. The world smells different now. Richer, softer, less like ash and effort. You walk home feeling taller, lighter, like someone who owns at least 2 tunics. You arrive at your door. Your mother sniffs. Soap? You nod. She snorts. Don't get used to it. But she smiles when she says it. That night, you sleep like someone who remembers what clean feels like. Because today, you didn't just bathe. You belonged. Today, you're headed somewhere even more unusual than the bathhouse. You're going to the monastery. Not because you've been especially pious or even especially curious, though you have wondered what it looks like behind those high stone walls. But your cousin, the one who can read, has been asked to copy a text, and you're tagging along to help fetch water and scrub ink off the floor when the friars spill it. You weren't expecting to see a bathhouse tucked behind the scriptorium, yet there it is, simple, elegant, and surprisingly fragrant. You pause as a monk carrying a steaming bucket walks past, humming a hymn and smelling faintly of lavender. You blink. Lavender? In winter? You look at your cousin. He shrugs. Monks bathe. You follow a novice down a narrow hallway, past racks of drying herbs and a basin full of clean linen. The floor is stone, but warm beneath your feet, thanks to clever channels that pipe heat from the kitchens below. You try not to gape. This place, it's calm, quiet, clean, no piglets rooting under benches, no chickens screaming from the rafters, just soft chanting, warm water, and a faint glow of candlelight. The monks take bathing seriously, not just for health, but for holiness. Cleanliness is next to godliness, one of them tells you with a smile, handing you a folded cloth and pointing to a wooden bench. And we're behind on both. You sit, eyes wide, watching as a few brothers quietly prepare for their turn. One oils his skin with frankincense, another files his nails with a bit of bone, a third trims his beard and then dips his feet in a copper basin so polished you can see your reflection. You help fill the large tub in the corner, carrying buckets of warm water from the fire pit. The bath is shallow but wide enough to sit in with your knees up. Everything smells like herbs and candle wax. There's no laughter, no shouting. Just occasional quiet conversations, mostly about psalms, mostly in Latin. You soak a cloth and begin wiping your arms, carefully, slowly. You don't want to seem greedy. You're not allowed to fully submerge. But a full body wipe down in warm, scented water, that's as close to heaven as you'll get this month. Historians still debate whether monastic hygiene was strict or indulgent. Some records show monthly bathing schedules. Others hint at weekly cleansings. You're choosing to believe it's weekly, just to give yourself something to dream about. A monk hands you a bowl of scented oil and a comb carved from boxwood. You comb your hair gently. No pulling, no sibling yelling, no lice. For now. You rinse your face with rose water. You blink. You tear up a little. Not from pain, just because. You listen to a novice reciting part of a prayer about purification. You don't catch every word, but the tone is soft, kind. You repeat a few lines under your breath. You're not sure if you're praying or just pretending. Either way, it feels good. Quirky fact, nuns were known to bathe regularly too, especially in well-funded convents. Some even had heated pipes and private tubs. You once heard of a nun who refused to confess until she'd washed her feet. You respect that. You help hang towels near the hearth and thank the monk who let you sit by the warm stone floor. He nods, presses a mint leaf into your hand, and goes back to arranging herbs. You chew the mint slowly. The coolness surprises you. On the way out, you pass by the chapel. Your cousin bows low. You follow suit. Then you sneak one last glance at the bathhouse door, already missing its warmth. Back at home, your mother asks why your skin is glowing. You say, "The monastery." She nods. "So you didn't do anything useful today?" You smile. "Nope." That night, you wrap yourself in your clean shift, hair braided, mint still tingling on your tongue. You fall asleep thinking of stone floors, quiet voices, and the sweet, gentle steam of sacred water. You're halfway through heating a pot of stew when your sister bolts through the doorway, breathless, wide-eyed, and holding a bundle of firewood like it owes her money. "It's bath day," she huffs. "Mother says we're doing it here." You freeze, ladle in midair. A bath, at home. You glance at the hearth, already hot. The big cauldron, usually reserved for stews and suspicious porridge, is half filled with water. A small bucket of ashes sits nearby. The bath's happening whether you like it or not. You grab the broom and start sweeping, not because the dirt floor will ever be clean, but because no one wants to bathe next to yesterday's goat droppings. Your brother is assigned the job of chasing said goat out of the house. He fails 3 times. The goat is persistent. Eventually, the animal is bribed with a turnip and tied to the post outside. Now, the preparations begin. The water is ladled into a wooden tub, round, knee-deep, cracked slightly on one side but still holding. You test it with your foot. Warm but not hot, a luxury nonetheless. Your mother throws in a sprig of mint and a fistful of dried flowers. They float limply for about 10 seconds before sinking like disappointed expectations. Still, they smell better than most things. You help gather towels, well, cloths, and hang them near the hearth to stay warm. One has a suspicious stain. You fold it cleverly so no one sees. Then comes the boiling. Big pots of water are carried slowly, carefully from hearth to tub, each slosh threatening to scald someone's foot. Your youngest sibling almost trips and dumps half a pot into the straw pile. It hisses, everyone yells. Finally, the tub is ready. Your older sister goes first. Modesty is more about noise than nudity. Everyone looks away, and no one speaks unless it's to say, "Don't use all the soap," which she does. When it's your turn, the water is cloudy. You hesitate. Someone says, "It's still warm." Another says, "The dirt sinks to the bottom." It's fine. You mutter something about sediment being sacred and climb in. It's tight. Your knees are up near your ears, but the water hugs you, warm and forgiving. You scrub with a rag, trying to pretend you're not soaking in everyone else's day. You start with your face, then your arms, then legs, then the middle bits. Quickly. No one's looking, but your brother just coughed suspiciously. You rub lye soap over your shoulders. It lathers a little. It stings a little. It smells like old candles and herbs. You breathe in, lean back, and think, "This is nice." Then your sister tosses in another pot of warm water, right onto your toes. You yelp. She shrugs. Quirky fact, entire families used to share a bath, one after another, in the same water. The saying, "Don't throw the baby out with the bath water," that's not metaphor. That's logistical advice. You finish scrubbing and climb out, dripping, pink, and strangely relaxed. You wrap yourself in a cloth, now only mildly damp, and sit near the fire. Your feet are steaming. Your hair is curling. You feel soft. Your brother takes his turn last. The water, by now, is more suggestion than solution. He shrugs, jumps in, and immediately knocks over a stool. The goat, outside, bleats in judgment. Later, after the tub is emptied into the garden, because why waste water, you help scrub the floor and hang the rags to dry. The house smells like mint, sweat, and burnt straw, but clean sweat. Honest sweat. You brush your hair out by candlelight, untangling knots with your fingers and a dull comb. Your mother oils her hands and rubs her knees. Your sister plucks straw from her braid. Your brother is humming tunelessly, wrapped in a towel like a smug sausage. You all look at each other, and for once, no one says, "You stink." That's high praise. You crawl into bed, your skin warm, your scalp tingling, your muscles jelly. You fall asleep with a clean body. A rare, glorious feeling. You dream of hot water and soap that doesn't sting. Of a second tub, just for you. Of a future with towels that don't smell like soup. You wake with the sun peeking through the shutter and the unmistakable feeling that your scalp is crunchy. Clean, yes, but crunchy. The home bath aftermath is real. Your hair dried weird, twisted, flat on one side, spiky on the other. You run your fingers through it. It crackles, possibly from leftover soap. possibly from sleeping with your head pressed into the roughest straw mat west of anywhere. You grab your comb, your faithful, two-toothed companion, and start working through the chaos. You wince, you mutter, you pull out something that might have been a seed or might have been a small pebble. Either way, you toss it into the fire and keep going. Today, you're headed to the manor, not as a guest. Don't be silly. You're there to help carry firewood and scrub floors. But rumor has it the Lord's family is bathing, which means the copper tub will be out, the perfumed oils will be poured, the servants will be whispering about who uses rose water and who just wants to be hosed down and left alone. You don't expect to be near the bathing chamber, but one can dream. You arrive at the manor gates mid-morning, hands still smelling faintly of lye soap and parsley. You shuffle past the kitchens, where someone is roasting something that smells expensive, and enter through the side. And then, by divine mistake or blessed coincidence, you're told to carry towels to the bath chamber. You pretend to be calm. You are not calm. The chamber is warm and hazy, lit by a dozen beeswax candles and a small hearth in the corner. The floor is tiled. The air smells like lavender and citrus, which is confusing and delightful. The copper tub sits in the center, already filled, steam curling like ribbons into the air. A servant is preparing a tray of oils, sweet almond, rose, even clove. Another adds a few sprigs of thyme to the warm water. You stare in awe. Thyme, in a tub. You carry your stack of towels, soft, white, probably washed by hand a dozen times, and place them gently on a wooden bench. You resist the urge to sniff them. Barely. Quirky fact: noble baths were an event. Some included wine, snacks, even music. One lord supposedly had someone read poetry to him while he bathed. Another demanded his dog sit beside the tub and judge the soap quality with a sneeze. You're asked to bring more water. You do. You're told to stir the herbs in the basin. You stir. You're even asked to fetch a linen wrap from the storage room. You fetch it like it's a sacred relic. All the while, the bathing lady, pale, perfumed, draped in layers of gauzy linen, does not look at you, but you look at everything. The carved comb, the golden spoon used to scoop scented powder, the tiny mirror polished to near magic clarity. You think of your own bucket bath, of soap lumps and reused rags, of the frog in the corner and the goat peeking through the window. This is a different world. A woman nearby is brushing the noble's hair with the gentleness of a whisper. You briefly wonder if you could get hired just to comb things. You're good at combing. You've trained for it your entire life. Eventually, you're dismissed. You bow. You walk backwards. You don't trip. You return to your regular work in the kitchen, elbows deep in carrot peels and cabbage leaves. The smell of rose oil follows you like a memory. You try to describe it to your cousin later. You fail. That night, you lie on your straw mat and think about copper tubs, about clean towels, about having someone else heat the water while you recline and sip spiced wine. You press your face into your slightly crusty pillow and smile. Maybe one day, maybe not. But for now, you've touched the edge of nobility, and you brought the time. It's been a week since your monastery bath, a few days since the bucket tub, and only one day since you touched an embroidered towel with your actual hands. So naturally, your hair has begun rebelling. You wake up with it matted to one side, stiff as a bad loaf of rye bread, and slightly damp with mystery. You sit up, groan, and run a hand through it. Your fingers catch. You pull back a small tangle the size of a walnut. It's unclear if it's hair or a very determined dust ball. Today, you're going to wash your hair. And yes, that's a whole separate thing. Hair washing in the Middle Ages is its own ritual. It's not something you do lightly. It requires planning, hot water, herbal ingredients, a comb that won't give up halfway through, and, most importantly, patience. You tell your mother. She raises an eyebrow. Didn't you just do that at Candlemas? You stare at her. That was weeks ago. She sighs like you've asked to eat the last fig in the house. Fine, but use the back barrel water, and don't waste the mint. You gather your tools, one small bucket, a rag, your comb, a cracked bowl, and the sacred vinegar flask. Yes, vinegar. You take everything behind the house, where a low stool waits beside the rinsing barrel. The goat watches you. The chickens scatter. You roll up your sleeves and prepare for war. You start by dunking a cloth in the barrel and wetting your scalp. It's cold. You hiss. The water drips down your neck and into your tunic. Already regretting this. Then you add a splash of vinegar into the bowl. Apple or wine, doesn't matter. Both smell like foot pickles. You pour it over your hair, massage it in with your fingers, and feel your scalp tingle like it's rethinking every life decision. Next, the herbs. You crush some mint, a pinch of thyme, and a few strands of rosemary between your palms and work them into your hair. You saw a nun do this once. She claimed it keeps fleas away. You're not sure if it's true, but it does make you smell less like despair and more like soup. Then comes the combing. You sit on the stool and begin pulling the comb through. It snags immediately. You close your eyes. Breathe. Pull again. A clump of something emerges. You flick it into the grass and mutter a prayer. Quirky fact. Many medieval folks only washed their hair a few times per year. More than that was seen as indulgent or dangerous. Some believed too much hair washing could lead to fever, melancholy, or worst of all, visible vanity. You scrub your scalp with your fingernails. You rinse. You repeat. By the time you're done, your arms are sore, your knees are wet, and your patience is an endangered species. But your hair feels light, soft, even. You squeeze out the excess water and wrap your head in a rag. You sit in the sun for a bit, letting the breeze dry your hair naturally. It smells sharp, vinegary, but clean. Your head no longer itches. You feel like you've removed an invisible helmet of disappointment. Back inside, your sister gasps. Did you do something? You flip the rag dramatically. Yes, I washed. She sniffs cautiously. It's nice. You smell like pickled sage. High praise. That evening, your hair dries into fluffy waves. You comb through it easily. No snags, no sneaky twigs. You tie it back with a ribbon. You look in your distorted bronze mirror and smile. Not because you're suddenly noble, but because for once, your scalp doesn't feel like a battlefield. Historians still argue how often people truly cared for their hair. There are records of noble women rinsing with rainwater and drying their curls on heated tiles. But for regular people, this, vinegar, mint, and a comb that doubles as a weapon, is the luxury. You fall asleep with a clean head. You dream of baths that don't sting, of oils that don't smell like soup, of a world where your hair stays detangled for more than a day. You're sitting outside, watching your brother attempt to clean his fingernails with a splinter of wood, when it hits you. Your mouth. More specifically, the fact that your mouth tastes like last week's stew, 3-day-old barley bread, and the faint echo of dried onions. You exhale gently, and your sister recoils like you've cast a curse. It's time to freshen up, medieval style. There's no toothbrush, no toothpaste, no minty gel or floss. What you do have is a stick. Not just any stick, a tooth stick. You grab one from the bundle by the hearth, already whittled smooth on one end and slightly frayed on the other. It's made from a local sapling that someone swore smells like sweet rain. It doesn't. It smells like tree. But it works. You chew the frayed end until it softens, then use it to scrub your teeth. Gently. Circular motions, occasionally wincing when you hit that molar that's been questionable. The sap tastes bitter, slightly herbal. You spit into the grass and rinse your mouth with water from the bucket. It tastes faintly of iron. You swish anyway. Tooth care in the Middle Ages isn't about vanity. It's survival. Bread is hard. Flour is full of grit. Your enamel has seen things, and you'd very much like to keep at least 2 chewing teeth into your 30s. Once you've scrubbed enough to remove whatever's clinging to your molars, you chew a parsley leaf. Not for flavor, for breath. Quirky fact: parsley, mint, fennel seeds, and cloves were all used in medieval mouth potions. People chewed them between meals to freshen breath and fight mouth miasmas, invisible foul vapors said to cause illness and social exile. Your grandmother once claimed bad breath could attract demons. Your uncle claimed it repelled his in-laws. You figure it's best to just chew the parsley. You spit again. This time, your breath smells vaguely peppery. That's a win. You wipe your mouth on your sleeve and move on to the next hygienic task. Ears. Your mother gives you a bent iron pin. Blunt, not sharp. You wrap the end in cloth and carefully dig around. You find what you're looking for. You flick it away and pretend you didn't. Then there's the nose. A quick rinse. A sniff of strong vinegar. A sneeze. You are now, as far as you can tell, face clean. But the final touch? A breath potion. Your cousin taught you this. A small pinch of dried mint and clove crushed into a paste with honey and rubbed onto the tongue. You try it now. The clove stings. The mint burns. The honey helps. For 5 minutes, your mouth feels like it's fighting off evil spirits. Maybe it is. You smile at your sister. She sniffs, nods approvingly. Less like compost today. You bow. Your breath is also tolerable. The family cheers. You sit down for dinner, barley stew again. And this time, you taste it differently. The clove still lingers. The parsley still fights. You almost enjoy it. Historians still argue whether medieval people prioritized oral hygiene. Records show toothpicks, mouth rinses, and even early tooth powders made from powdered charcoal and crushed shells. You tried that once. It was crunchy. You stick with sticks. You go to bed with your head wrapped, your lips lightly honeyed, and your toothstick tucked under your mat like a lucky charm. It's not minty fresh, but it's good enough for the 1300s. And that's all you can ask. The weather turns overnight. You wake to a cold so sharp it feels personal, like winter itself knocked on your door and whispered, "You're not bathing today, peasant." Which is just as well, because your nose is running, your throat's sore, and you've got that familiar medieval tickle behind your eyes. You're sick. You know it's bad when your mother gives you the look, the one that means, you may or may not survive this. I'll start the garlic tea. She wraps you in every scrap of cloth the family owns. 2 wool blankets, a patchy fur shawl, and what might have once been a curtain. and tucks a hot stone at your feet. You're now a burrito of misery. You cough. Your sister crosses herself. Your grandmother appears holding a handful of crushed garlic, a sprig of thyme, and a rope necklace strung with dried onions. She drapes it around your neck solemnly. You now smell like a plague banquet. Welcome to medieval medicine. Bathing is banned. Absolutely not allowed. You'll open your pores, your mother says firmly, and the sickness will get inside. You don't point out that the sickness already is inside. You just nod, sniff, and sip the garlic brew she hands you. It burns. You cry. She smiles. Quirky fact, bathing while ill was believed to weaken the body's defenses. Medical texts warned that heat, moisture, and nakedness invited death to take hold. You once heard of a man who bathed during a fever and was blamed for a local crop failure. You're not taking any chances. So you sit in the corner, sweating, stinking, steaming gently under layers of wool and caution. A healer stops by, an older woman with a basket full of herbs and a look that says she has seen things. She pokes your belly, listens to your breathing, spits once for good luck, and ties a knot in a string that she claims will trap your fever. She tells your mother to hang sage over the door. She tells you to sleep facing north. She gives you a tiny wooden charm to wear on your wrist, carved with symbols that look suspiciously like turnips. You accept it gratefully. There's no bathing today, no combing, no scraping, just sweating, sipping, coughing, and occasionally hallucinating a goat that may or may not be real. Your sister offers to dab your face with a damp rag. You agree. The cloth is cold, and you feel halfway holy. You lie back and sigh. You look better already, she says. You do not. But you appreciate the lie. By afternoon, the fever hits its peak. You've kicked off one blanket. You immediately regret it. Your mother adds 2 more. You briefly wonder if this is how you die. Swaddled in old cloaks, soaked in garlic, and smelling faintly of desperation. But the hours pass. The sun shifts. The sweat dries. And slowly, slowly, the weight lifts. You open your eyes to candlelight. Your sister is asleep beside the hearth. Your grandmother is muttering over a pot of something that smells like chicken and twigs. You sit up. You sniff. You grimace. You reek. It's glorious, because it means you lived. You whisper, "Bath tomorrow?" Your mother hears. She pauses, then smiles. "Maybe, if you're strong." You nod. You fall back into your pile of wool and onions. You drift into sleep again, already dreaming of warm water, fresh linen, and the chance to rinse away the plague, or at least the smell of raw garlic. You're alive, barely. The fever's broken, the sweat's dried, and you can finally smell something other than garlic. Unfortunately, what you smell is yourself. You sit up in your nest of blankets and groan. Every joint feels like it's been borrowed from someone much older, much soggier, and much less enthusiastic about stairs. But your hair no longer hurts. Your lungs have stopped rattling. And the goat hallucination hasn't returned. That's progress. You whisper the sacred phrase, "I want to bathe." Your grandmother gives you a cautious look. It's still cold out. "I'm not drinking the bath," you mutter. She relents. Slowly. You're granted permission for a partial wash, also known as the half bath. You know the drill. Warm a bit of water, clean what shows, ignore the rest. In winter, that's as much as anyone dares. The wind howls outside. Rain patters on the shutters. A mouse scurries across the rafters. You wrap yourself in a cloak and shuffle toward the hearth. Your sister has already prepared a basin, steam rising gently from the water, a cloth soaking like it's been blessed by saints. You smile at her. She smiles back. "Don't pass out this time," she says sweetly. You sit by the fire and dip the cloth in the water. You start with your face. It's crusty. You scrub gently. Skin flakes away like old parchment. You move to your neck, your arms, your hands. Then the hard part, armpits. You brace yourself. The cloth hisses. You hiss louder. You scrub as if you're trying to erase regret. A moth flutters past and visibly flinches. You finish one side and move to the next. Somewhere outside, a bird dies, but it's done. You rinse, wring, and repeat for your feet. You stare down at them like strangers. They've lived through something. They deserve better. You dry off with a warm cloth and begin layering your cleanest garments. A fresh linen shift, wool over it, a hood for your damp hair. You look in the bronze mirror. You are presentable. Not fresh, not dewy, but you no longer feel like a portable plague cloud. Quirky fact, in medieval winter, people believed cold air entered through open pores, especially after washing. To protect yourself, you had to dry fast, stay near heat, and ideally rub vinegar on your chest. You skip the vinegar. You've suffered enough. Outside, the village is quiet. No one's bathing today. The priest is warning against tempting winter demons. A child sneezes dramatically and blames it on someone bathing too enthusiastically last week. Everyone nods. You sit by the fire and let the heat soak into your bones. Your sister hands you a comb. You accept it with reverence. Your hair is a battlefield, but you're determined. You tug, untangle, smooth. A few small knots die heroically. You braid slowly, carefully, with fingers that still tremble from fever. You tie it off with a bit of twine. It looks decent. You feel human. Your mother brings broth. You sip. It's warm, salty, and contains something vaguely green. You don't ask what. You say thank you. Historians still debate whether winter bathing was rare due to custom or necessity. In your world, it's both. Water freezes, fires cost wood, illness hunts the vulnerable, and yet there's pride in being clean, even a little, even just the parts that show. As the sun sets, you light a small tallow candle and wrap yourself in a blanket. The floor is swept. Your shift smells faintly of rosemary. Your hands are soft from the steam. You survived the sickness. You survived the half bath. You lie down on your mat, dry and drowsy, and close your eyes. Tomorrow, you might dare to wash your knees. But tonight, your skin is warm, and your soul is at rest. Morning light filters through the window. What little of it can fight past the soot-smudged glass and the fog of winter breath clinging to the pane. The fire's burned low, but the coals still glow like buried embers under yesterday's ashes. You stretch, blink, and realize something shocking. You don't smell bad. Not great, of course. You're still a medieval peasant. But there's a distinct lack of foot rot, garlic fog, and stale wool emanating from your body. You sit up, sniff your own shoulder cautiously, and nod in appreciation. You might even be ready for something radical, a holy day wash. Holy days don't mean bubble baths or rose petals. This isn't a monastery. But they do mean communal gatherings, religious rituals, and worst of all, people getting close enough to sniff you. So, before Mass, you prep. First up, the visible parts routine. You fill a small basin with water warmed just enough over the hearth to make your fingers tingle but not scream. You dip a cloth in, squeeze it out, and begin with the face, eyes, nose, behind the ears. Not in the ears. Last time you tried that, you heard the ocean for 2 days. Then, your hands. You scrub like you've just committed a minor sin with a turnip. You dig under your fingernails with a sliver of wood. The water darkens. You pretend not to notice. Next, neck, forearms, ankles if you're feeling ambitious. Your brother walks by and mutters, "You're gonna trick St. Mary into thinking you're nobility." You don't reply. You're too busy rubbing mint leaves into your palms. It's less about smell and more about confidence. You pull on your cleanest tunic, which is to say, the least patched, least itchy one with only one visible stain. Soup, probably. You fold your linen wrap neatly and loop it over your shoulder. It's holy day formal wear. If the wrap is clean and your hands aren't black, you've achieved excellence. At the village chapel, everyone gathers. The priest smells like beeswax and damp wool. You slide into a pew between two women who both look freshly rinsed. The pressure is real. You whisper a quick prayer to St. Anne, patroness of housekeepers and quiet miracles. "Please don't let me smell like goat. Amen." Mass begins. There's incense, smoky and cloying. It hides a multitude of sins, both moral and olfactory. The bells chime. You kneel. You rise. You mutter along with the chants, not knowing all the words, but definitely recognizing the rhythm. Quirky fact: before feast days or holy events, people were expected to wash all dishonor from their skin. Manuals even suggested washing one's heart with confession and one's elbows with lye soap. The second part stung more. After Mass, there's bread, wine, conversations. You overhear a boy bragging about having washed both feet and knees. His friend counters with, "I changed my tunic last week." They nod solemnly. You don't weigh in. You know your mint-scrubbed hands speak for themselves. You return home full of bread and smugness. Your mother eyes your shiny forehead and asks, "You used up all the warm water again, didn't you?" You grin. "It was for the Lord." She smirks. "Next time, remember, the Lord also likes clean benches. Get the rag." You wipe the benches, still glowing from spiritual and literal freshness. That evening, as the candles burn low and the chapel bells toll faintly across the fields, you sit by the fire, tucking your clean feet under your cloak. You've washed today. You've prayed today. You didn't get sneered at for your smell. You are, by medieval standards, flawless. You sleep that night knowing you'll be filthy again by tomorrow. But today you were worthy of a holy sniff. There's a slowness to your limbs this morning, the kind that only comes with age, chill, and a lifetime of scrubbing stains from wool with soap that bites. You sit up from your mat, joints creaking in harmony, and reach for the stick you now use to stand. It's not elegant, but neither are your knees. You groan softly as you straighten, one hand pressed to the wall for balance. You're not young anymore. When bathing isn't something you do. It's something that happens to you, carefully, occasionally, and with a lot of grumbling. Your granddaughter appears in the doorway with her usual stern face and warm cloths. She's 14 and has the shoulders of a woman 2 times her age. "You need washing," she announces, as if you didn't already notice the stale itch behind your ears. "I just had a bath," you protest. She raises an eyebrow. At Whitsuntide, it's November. Fair. She heats water over the hearth, pours it into a basin, and adds a bit of lavender she stole from the manor's garden. You pretend not to notice. She hums as she works. You recognize the tune. Your mother used to hum it too, back when you were the one swabbing ancient elbows and scolding someone for smelling like goat rind. You sit quietly as she wipes your face, neck, and hands with a damp cloth. The warmth seeps into your bones. She scrubs behind your ears. You wince. "Still sharp, those ears," she says. You don't reply. You're too busy enjoying the sensation of not itching. She moves to your arms next, then feet. She skips the middle bits with practiced modesty. You once tried bathing yourself last winter. You nearly fell into the hearth and declared the attempt a personal insult from God. Now, you let her help. Quirky fact, elders were often washed by younger relatives, especially before holy days, feast gatherings, or, more ominously, death. It was seen as an act of respect, love, and preparation. In your case, it's all three. When she finishes, she pats your hands dry and rubs in a little oil, olive if she's been saving, goose fat if she hasn't. It softens your fingers. You flex them slowly, marveling at the creases. Your granddaughter brushes your hair. It's thin now, streaked with white and stubborn as rope. She murmurs something about saints and knots. You laugh. She braids what's left and tucks a sprig of dried rosemary into the plait. "You smell better," she says, half teasing. "So do you," you say back. "You've been near the lavender again." She grins. You rest in your chair for most of the morning, sipping weak ale, watching the fire. You feel fresh in that delicate, wrapped in herbs sort of way. It's not the bath of a noble, but it's better. By evening, you help shell peas. You peel garlic. You hum. You haven't done much today. But your skin is clean, your hair is neat, and your joints aren't screaming. That's something. Historians still debate how often elders were bathed in medieval homes. Some say monthly, some say just before funerals. You prefer to think it was somewhere in between. You're not dead yet, you're just seasoned. That night, your family gathers by the fire. The dog curls at your feet. The stew simmers. Your granddaughter combs her own hair with the same strokes you once taught her. You lie down on your mat, wrapped in a soft shift that smells of rosemary and warmth. Your hands are folded on your chest. Your heart is steady. You feel clean. Clean enough for dreams. Clean enough for the gods. Clean enough for whatever comes next. And now, with the fire fading to amber coals and the world outside your cottage hushed by frost and night, you let the story settle. You've walked through the filth and the warmth of medieval life, wiped down with vinegar rags, scoured with lye soap, dunked in icy rivers, and steamed in flickering bathhouses. You've scrubbed your feet, your soul, and everything in between with the quiet understanding that clean isn't about perfection. It's about care. And now, in this last stillness, your body softens under the weight of blankets, straw, and rest. Let the air around you cool just enough to be crisp. Let the thought of lavender oil drift faintly through your mind. Let the steam from the bathhouses, those warm, echoing rooms full of laughter and gossip, rise one final time before dissolving into nothing. Because the day is done. The buckets are emptied. The soap has hardened on the shelf. And you, tired, clean, content, have earned your rest. Let your limbs loosen. Let your breath slow. Let your eyes, heavy with sleep, close at last. No more water to heat, no more goats to chase, no more dust to scrub from your nails. Just peace, just warmth. Just the soft silence of a night long ago. Sleep now, little one of history. Sleep clean.